of the difference. Trimmed, the name says it all. You'll be trimming stuff off. So when would you want to be using the trimmed mean, right? You're eliminating, like let's say you're trying to find the average of your class, like my class right now, grade 12 essential. And you know, there are a couple students that I've never seen. Okay, so what is their score, do you think? 0, right? 0, exactly. So if I find my average and there are 2 students or whatever that I've never seen have a 0, would you want to include those marks in your average to know truly how your class is doing? Probably not, right? You would probably want to trim those marks because they've never been here. They don't know, like it's not a reflection of how much they've learned. It's just they haven't been here, right? So you trim that. Even if you like a lot of businesses, they always report their average monthly income right at the end of the year. Would you want to include March, April, May in your report because COVID hit, right? So sometimes it makes sense to trim your mean, to remove either there's either a number that is very low that you want to remove or a number that's really high that you want to remove. To have a better representation of what the average really is for that specific example. So that's the trimmed mean, okay? Weighted mean, that is what you mostly know weighted mean as how we calculate your grades. Different categories have different fill in the blank, different weights, right? So tests are weighted more than quizzes. Quizzes, right, are weighted a little bit more than ACs and so forth. And then there's your exam, right? So you have weights, different weights. So weighted mean is going to come a little later. Today we're going to focus on trimmed mean. And trimmed mean has to do with outliers, okay? So grab your highlighter if you have one, or underline things that we're going to talk about. Oop. Somebody came in there. Raised hand. Yeah, Grant, go ahead. Or are you just... It said that you raised your hand, Grant, so was it just a mistake or what? Accident, okay. See, it still happens, you know, students, like they raise their hand and then you're like, yeah, you have a question? No, it's just stretching, right? It's still happening. You're still, oh, it was just an accident. Anyways, that's pretty funny. Here we go, weighted mean and outliers. So today we're basically focusing on these two here, trimmed mean and weighted means, okay? Working with outliers and trimmed means. So outliers, I don't know if the name says anything to you, but if you're an outlier, that means that you're outside of everything, like most of your data, right? In some question, previous section, you calculated the mean, median, and mode, and they were quite different. These calculations could be skewed or distorted by the distribution of data, right? Calculations can be skewed and distorted by the distribution of data. So skewed or distorted is like something could be pulling your average up. Like let's say you make $1,000 every month, all of a sudden you got an opportunity to make extra money and you made like $3,000 one month. Well, that's gonna like up your average at the end of the year. You might want to eliminate that, right? If there's a number, right? A number that is quite different. A number that's quite different from the other numbers, right? This is an outlier. So there's your definition of an outlier. A number that is quite different from the other numbers, okay? So if you want to put an arrow up here, right, your definition is above it. As discussed in section 1.3, an outlier, here it is again, different wording. Outlier is a data point that is significantly different from the general trend. Okay, there it is again, outlier again. different way of talking about it. An outlier can have a considerable effect on the arithmetic mean, right? It affects the arithmetic mean. And to account for this, right, trimmed mean may therefore be a more representative measure of central tendency. When there are outliers, okay, trimmed mean is found by omitting, here it is, trimmed mean is found by omitting, that means ignoring equal number of numbers of values on the upper and lower ends of the set of data. Okay, so this is very important here. Trimmed mean is found by omitting an equal number of values from the upper and the lower ends of the data. So what that means, and we're going to talk about that in a bit, let's say you have, 2, 3, 7, 9, 20, right? That's your set of data. If you think about it, 2, 3, it's actually going up gradually, and then all of a sudden you have this guy that's way outside, like from 9 all of a sudden to 20. This would be considered outlier, right? That would be considered an outlier. What we do in that case, we don't want to include that in our calculation. We trim one from the upper end. Therefore, you also need to trim one on the lower end. So this is lower end, and this is upper. Okay, so that's what they mean by that. If you have an outlier, and by the way, you could have more than one outlier. Like if you had 20 and 21 or something right next to it, you would consider both of them to be outliers because your general trend was going 2, 3, 7. It's a jump, but it's not a huge jump. This one definitely sticks out. We would call that an outlier. We would want to get rid of it, but we also need to get rid of the lower. Okay? If there are two outliers and you want to get rid of both of them, you have to trim 2 on the upper, 2 on the lower. Like you have to eliminate the same number of numbers. You can't just get rid of 2 on the upper and 1 on the lower. Otherwise, you're actually making it worse. You're skewing your data even more. So here, I'm just going to highlight this again. This is summarizing again. Trimmed mean, the mean calculated by disregarding an equal number of data points from both ends of the range. Can I ask you something? If you have a chance, write down the definition of an outlier, either this one or this one, on your study sheet, and also have the definition of trimmed mean, either this one here or this one on the side on your study sheet. You can summarize it a bit, but have it there because by the end of the year, you'll forget. I can guarantee you that. And I don't blame you because you've got tons of other stuff going on, right? So let's keep going here. Example 1. It will not always be arranged, but in this case it is. Okay? So a data set contains the following values. So we've got the values there. Okay? Calculate the arithmetic mean. This is just your regular, this is what we call our regular mean. Okay? Regular mean. That's how they distinguish. There's the arithmetic mean, there's the trimmed mean, which we're going to talk about today, and then there's the weighted mean. So there are 3 different ways of finding the average. So let's go over here and answer A here. And the arithmetic mean gets this notation, as always. X bar is equal to, we would just add them all up, that's 55 divided by 7. And that's 7.86. And we don't know what they are, so we're just going to put down units. It could be hours, it could be days, it could be scores on a test, who knows. So 7.86 it is. B, identify any outliers, then calculate the trimmed mean. Right? We would say that Oh, they're not arranged. Sorry. I don't know why I was saying that. Let's arrange this. Okay. Arrange data. So we're going to do that here. We're going to go 3, cancel that out. Next is 4, cancel that out. Then we've got 5 and 6. We've got 9 and 20. You've got 3, 6, 7, 3. Oh, I missed one, right? 8. See? There you go. 3, 6, 7. I caught it by counting the number of values that I put down. So you arrange it. So if you think about it, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, it's a gradual trend. This is the trend. They're close together. There's no significant gap between any of these values. So this would be the outlier. I will just say different from the trend. To calculate the trimmed mean, I just use TM. It's just easier. And I use WM for weighted mean. We do this. Okay? We trim, because you want to get rid of this outlier here, we trim that, but we also trim one on the lower end. So you're left with 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 8 plus 9. And how many values are left? Earlier we had 7. We're trimming 2, so we're down to 5. Okay, so it affects the top and it affects the bottom. So this gives you 32 over 5, which is 6.40 units. C. Explain the difference between the arithmetic mean and the trimmed mean. Arithmetic mean included all values as well as outlier. Okay. Trimmed mean removed upper and lower values. And I will make a note here, the bottom of this. Okay. Since the outlier was on the upper end, comma, the mean decreased. And just to prove my point, right, we had 7.86 earlier. When we trimmed it, what happened to our mean? We went down. So it's almost like a tug of war, right? You're pulling and you've got big heavy champion on this side pulling you up, right? If you lose that guy or the lady, right? It's going to pull back to the other side, right? So because your outlier was on the upper end, if you remove it, even though you're removing a number on the lower end, this is the one that's pulling you up. So that's why it decreased. If your outlier had been on the lower end and you remove that one, it will increase your average. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe it will make more sense as we go along. but you need to remember that, okay? There's a blank page on the back side here, and my idea was to use it for some notes. And I think I'm going to do that tomorrow. For today, because we're running out of time, we're going to go skip that blank page. We're going to use it, don't worry about it. 124, let's go to 124. Okay, and so there's build your skills. So I'm going to do one, and then I will ask you to do the other one that's on this page. And that will get us to the end of trimmed mean guaranteed. Okay, so build your skills. A data set contains the following numbers. I wish it would put more units down, because the provincial exam or my test can almost guarantee you that these numbers will mean something. It could be weight, it could be, right? It doesn't matter. Anyways, a data set contains the following numbers. Calculate the arithmetic mean. That one is just a regular, right? You add them all up. Go ahead and add them all up. You get 2185 over 10. There are 10 values that you've added. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And that gives you 218.5 or 0.50. I'm so used to rounding to 2 decimals, I'm always going to put the 2 decimals down there. And we don't know what units they are, so we're just going to put down units, okay? Identify any outliers if they exist. Notice how they say that if they exist. It could be a set that has no outliers, okay? And calculate the trimmed mean, right? So there it is. We need to figure out the trimmed mean. And I'm going to make this a little sweeter for you here. You can probably identify the outlier just by looking at it, okay? Can you tell me where the outlier is? Like you look at 125, 64, 524, and 476. I'm being told that these are both outliers. Would you agree with that? Yes. Just underline them once and just look at everything else. We're always in the hundreds, right? We're always in the hundreds, not even 200, right? And all of a sudden you've got these two big outliers here. However, I will once arrange them, because for these two outliers on the upper end, we need to remove the two lowest. Okay, so how about we arrange that just quickly? So I will do that up here. So 125 is the lowest, and I have this here on my key. So 129 is the next, and we have 132. And then we have 130, do this as well, okay, 133. And then we've got 154. Right, and then we've got 165. No, 164 is lower. And then we've got 165. Hopefully this will work. 183, 476, 524. And normally these won't be huge data sets, okay? So it's doable. So these are your outliers. These are your outliers, both of them, okay? We've got two of them there. If you want to get rid of 524, which we do want, you need to remove the very lowest as well. If you want to remove the 476, you need to also remove the 129. So that's why you need to arrange, because you need to remove the two lowest as well. And here's where it gets pretty sweet, okay? I mean, you might actually find it easier to just add up these here and then divide it by, how many are we removing? we're removing 4, right? So you end up with 6 values. So it's either you do this way, here it's 10 minus 4, right? You used to have 10, now you're removing 4. That'll get you to 6. And here you go 2185 minus, let's remove the outliers. Sorry. So basically I'm using the example above, right? Because you're removing these 4 values up here and you're removing 4 from the total number of numbers. So that gets you 931 over 6, which is 155.71 units. That's what we're after. So just to clarify, Mr. Dirksen, could I have just added the whatever is left and divided it by 6? Absolutely. Absolutely. No problem there. I just like to show it this way to see how they're related, right? And notice again, you removed upper outliers. What happened to your mean? These are still two means, right? They're too mean for us. It goes down, right? 155.71. So that's what I want you to notice, right? So there will be outliers on the low end. These, just, I'm going to be very specific here. These two are not outliers. But Mr. Dirksen, we removed them, so they must be. It's like, no, no, no. These are our outliers, but to remove them, we had to remove the two lowest as well. That's why we removed them, okay? Not because they're outliers. So there's a difference. Okay, so before we go, I'm going to ask you to work on question 2. So this is what I'm going to tell you. Do now plus page, if you didn't do that yet, right? Was it 177, something like that? No, 117. 117 to 121. Like, so you do this now, just to have a quick review of trimmed mean, then go back to here and do these questions, which are just mean, median, mode, and try to dig up the ones where you work backwards. Okay. I will scan while you're working. I will scan the key to these pages here, 117 to 121, and I will post them as you're working. Okay. Don't hang up this yet. I might have one more thing to add. Sorry, it was 117 to 121. That's where we did. So I will just go ahead and work.